Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Anime Favorites video right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, here to bring you the latest in this week's Anime Favorites videos. And for this week's Anime Favorites, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take you guys back in time. I'm going to take you guys back 19 years to 1998 when I first discovered this series, and that is none other than the Pokemon anime series. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm mainly going to focus on the first 2 seasons, what is considered Pokemon the Indigo League. That comprises of the first 52 episodes of the anime, and I'm also going to mention the video game franchise briefly in this video as well, but we'll get into more detail with that later on in this video. So, first and foremost, let's talk about Pokemon. Now, I know some of my viewers might be surprised. Some of you guys might be like, Larry, seriously, the Pokemon anime? And that's because over the years, the anime has come under so much scrutiny, and it's been criticized and critiqued by anime fans and just general critics alike. And here's the thing, regardless of everything that has happened with the franchise since it first debuted in the States, and regardless of how old I am and regardless of how much time has passed, the fact still remains, this is the first anime series that I became a bona fide, certified, put a stamp on it fan of. And this is what I mean. When I first discovered the Pokemon anime, I was about 9 years old. And I was in 4th grade, and this was right before I discovered Dragon Ball Z. So at the time, like, I had been exposed to some anime. I had been exposed to Ronin Warriors. I had been exposed to the original Dragon Ball briefly. I had been exposed to Sailor Moon, but this was the first anime that I sort of discovered on my own, and I discovered from the very beginning, and that I followed all the way. Like, the first time I discovered Pokemon was when it was actually airing on the UPN network, and very few people will remember that, but like I want to say for like the first 6 months or so of its syndication, it was actually on the UPN network. And then in 2000, I want to say the fall of 1998 was when it moved to the Kids WB segment, to their Saturday morning programming block. And that's when the show blew up. That's when it took off, and that's when the Pokemon phenomenon began. I was actually introduced to this series before the Pokemon phenomenon. And so the thing was, there was another series that was airing at the time too, and I think UPN had this series as well. It was called Monster Rancher. And that was a show that I would, catch every now and then whenever I was able to. But when I discovered Pokemon, I actually confused this series from Monster Rancher. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember this. I don't remember these characters. What's going on? And then I noticed, I'm like, oh no, this is a completely different thing. And this is even before I found out that Pokemon was a video game franchise. So the thing is, what I enjoyed about the Pokemon series and what I still appreciate about it to this day is that regardless of what happens with the actual writing of the series and, the lack of character development and the lack of character progression and all that type of jazz, there was still some very powerful messages in that original series that for a 9 or a 10-year-old, and that's the other thing too, the fact that Ash was 10 years old, so he was just 1 year older than I was when I first discovered the series. And the fact that the story, because remember what the general premise behind Pokemon the anime was. Ash is a 10-year-old kid from Pallet Town who admires and inspires to become a Pokemon master. And back then, the definition of a Pokemon master was someone who achieved and who earned all 8 badges in the Indigo League or in the Kanto League, and then goes on to defeat the Elite Four and become the Pokemon League champion. Also, the Pokemon Master would be decided by if you were able to catch all 150, at the time it was 150 because we didn't know about Mew, 150 Pokemon. As you can tell, this is sort of a very big sort of conquest. This is a very high ideal to aspire to, and the idea that this 10-year-old kid leaves home to embark on this great journey, for a kid at the time, being able to watch a main character and a protagonist undergo such a monumental task, it was inspiring. And the thing that I loved about it so much at the time was that, this was Ash's dream. regardless of whether or not he actually had the ability to achieve it, he still went after it. And it didn't matter what opposition he faced, what challenges came along the way, and there were plenty just within the first 2 seasons. He still worked and he struggled and he strived, and even going back to, that theme song, like I said, like to this day, I just listened to it right before I did this video just to psych me up for this discussion. There are some really powerful messages and imagery just within the music. We all remember how the theme song starts off. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. To be a little kid listening to that on a daily basis, because not only did this air on Saturday mornings, it also aired on weekday afternoons. And so to hear that, like, when you're a kid, we all at that age, we have these almost outlandish dreams. At this time, I wanted to be Michael Jordan. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. This was before I decided to invest my time and energy and my study and years of work into, being a writer and being an artist. Back then, I wanted to be Michael Jordan. And then, like, not long after that, I wanted to be The Rock. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. But still, as kids, we have all of these dreams, and to be able to watch a series where the main character is going after his dream every day, like, even to this day, I can appreciate that. So that's one of the reasons why, that's probably the biggest reason why this series, even 19 years later, I still regard it as an anime favorite of mine, just because that is such a powerful message, especially for young audiences. And that's the other thing too. The second reason why I can still consider it a favorite is because I understand and I can appreciate and acknowledge who the demographic for this series really is. Let's be real about this. One of the biggest criticisms that this series has experienced is that it does not grow with its audience. It doesn't evolve past its original premise. And that's because this is still a series which, let's be honest about this, the main goal of this series is not storytelling. It's to sell the video games, much like, the original He-Man series and the original Transformers and G.I. Joes and all, and all that jazz. It's meant to push merchandise, okay? It's meant to push merchandise to young kids and the parents of young kids. But I will say this, at the same time, just like with those older series that I just mentioned, some legitimate, authentic storytelling did come from this series. The episode with like one of my favorite episodes, Charmander's introduction to the series, to this day, that episode still, gets me right here. This series, this episode that I took the screenshot for, where Ash, Charmander, Pikachu, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur get stuck in a blizzard, and they have to, survive this night in this cave in the middle of this snowstorm together. And, they have to huddle together and use their resources as a team in order to survive. There was still some really good storytelling in this series. And so regardless of all the merchandising and things like that, here's the thing. At its core, this is still a great beginning anime series for young people. This is still what I would recall as a gateway anime, meaning that for a lot of kids, this might be the first anime that they get introduced to. And so, yeah, it's not very, it's not well developed. And it's not necessarily the best anime under it's not even the best anime of its kind, like in terms of gateway animes. I wouldn't even consider it the best gateway anime. There are many problems with it. There are many problems with the storytelling. There are many problems with the characters. So many issues. But even with all that said, I can still appreciate what it means for a young viewer. And that's the most important thing we need to take from it. Another reason why this series is a favorite of mine, video games, like this is one of my favorite video game franchises. To this day, I still play Pokemon. Now granted, there was a very long period where I fell out of the games, pretty much generation 3 and 4 of the Pokemon video games. I completely missed those 2 generations. And I didn't get back into the series until Generation 5 with Pokemon Black, which I do have a video game review of Pokemon Black on the channel that I did several years ago. But the thing is, like, even to this day, I still enjoy the video games. And now granted, Pokemon Black, you know, for me, that was like the right game at the right time because that game was so good. To this day, I still think it's the best Pokemon video game that was ever made. Pokemon Black and White, you know, that the original Generation 5 games, like those exceeded every expectation that I would have had for a Pokemon game based upon my prior experience with the franchise. And since then, I don't think they've been able to match it. I don't think they have. You know, I've played Black 2, I've played X and Y, and currently I have Pokemon Sun. None of these games, oh, and then I also have Alpha Sapphire, the Gen 3 remake. None of those games I think can hold a candle to Black and White, to the original Generation 5, but I still love the franchise. And I love how, even with Pokemon Go, which I never played Pokemon Go, I had no interest in it. I do think it was gimmicky. I do think it was just, you know, a fad cell phone game. But even then, to see the resurgence of the franchise, you know, 2016, 2017, now I'm seeing 9 and 10-year-olds just like I was getting invested in this series, being introduced to anime as a medium for the very first time. And you know, that's what this is all about. That's what this segment is all about. And that's what we as anime fans, you know, we got to remember, as much as we might enjoy these animes ourselves and as much as we, you know, love to talk about them amongst our friends, one of the best things, one of the biggest things we can contribute to the anime community, as it were, is to share these series with new people. You know, we shouldn't be trying to ostracize people who want to partake in the medium that we enjoy, that want to partake in the series that we enjoy. We should be bringing them into the fold and, you know, and introducing them to this type of materials. So anyway, I mean, all in all, that pretty much does wrap up my thoughts on the series. I mean, I could go ahead and spend more time talking about, you know, some more of my favorite episodes. I might do a top 5 favorite Pokemon episodes in the future, perhaps. I might even do, you know, favorite Pokemon or favorite characters from the video games as part as favorite hero, favorite villains. But I just wanted to go ahead and spend this time just to, you know, sort of share my thoughts on this series, and like I said, to kind of take us all back to when we were a kid again, and to sort of remind ourselves, you know, about the dreams and aspirations that we used to have. And this series, I think, symbolizes that to the 10th degree. So that's going to wrap up this week's Anime Favorites video. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. And in the comments below, please leave your thoughts on this series. If any of you all, especially my younger viewers, fans of the later series like Johto Journeys, Johto League Champions, Master's Quest, anything like that, please feel free. Leave your thoughts on any one of those series in the comments below. Share this video with your friends and other people that you know are fans of the franchise. And even if you're just fans of the video games, because I know there are plenty of people who like the video games but couldn't stand the anime series. Hell, share this with them anyway. So with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.